All right. We get a motion to approve tonight's agenda.
I'll move to approve tonight's agenda.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Yeah. And can we get a motion to approve the minutes from December 18th?
Motion.
Go, Sam.
No, who had it?
Huh?
You go for it.
Now I forgot the date, so I'm looking at.
Just say so moved. All right. Second?
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Very good, all right. School committee chairperson comments. I guess welcome everybody back from the break and happy New Year's to everybody. And Dr. Cohen got her wish that snowstorms happened on the weekends, so no decisions to be made.
That's my New Year's resolution.
Very good. All right. We'll keep our fingers crossed and wishful thinking going forward here. Do we have any community comments in the room or online tonight?
See no hands.
No hands online, Sam? All right. Thank you very much. Okay, next up, we'll move to our student comments. We've got our student representatives. We've got Hannah with us here tonight. Hannah, why don't you give us an update?
Hi, so as a member of the GSA e-board, I've been designing posters for our potential upcoming bake sale. And we're hoping to have sometime soon. We have more dates and confirmation to be confirmed. Additionally, in the Drama Guild, we're working on our musical, Percy Jackson, which has been really time consuming and we've been putting a lot of effort to it. And additionally, Ski Club started. So I have a lot of friends that are in Ski Club and they've been telling me how it's going. And yeah, it's been pretty great.
Excellent. And GSA is?
Gender Sexuality Alliance.
Got it. Okay. Good, Mina, how are you?
Good.
Good. Good. Any other-
So, well, first things off, I'm gonna be ending the term January 22nd. I have my junior, my fellow classmate, who is working with the Mendon Senior Center to encourage technological awareness for the Mendon seniors. And their first meeting will be taking place soon next week on January 17th at the Mendon Senior Center. So the Nipmuc boys JV and varsity basketball teams are going to be hosting a leukemia awareness game on Tuesday, January 16th in honor of Ava, the 5-year-old niece of Ms. Anandiata, an English teacher at the Nipmuc School, as she fights through leukemia. And Ms. Anandiata is working with the LLS, the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society, to raise money and awareness around blood cancer.
Thank you. All right, Dr. Cohen, over to you.
Yeah, so we have some middle school presentations, some students who are here. So I don't know if Mrs. Lupstreet want to bring them up and introduce, and we can hear all about the good stuff they're doing.
So excited to be here. So thank you for allowing us to come tonight and talk about something really exciting that's going on in 5th grade. I was supposed to be joined by Mr. McMurray. Unfortunately, he had a little accident happen and he's healing at home right now with some stitches, but he sends his well wishes and we're hoping that he heals quickly. So with me tonight, I have Rylan Wilkinson, I have Molly Henry, and I have Merrick Histon. They're 5th graders in my ELA class. So what I'm going to share with you tonight is a little, it's part of a project-based learning unit that Mr. McMurray and I, along with Mrs. Cody, the whole 5th grade, has started this. And so I wanted to share with you, I'm going to skip by this one. Mr. McMurray and I are part of our project-based learning leadership team that we were given a grant to be part of this leadership team to bring project-based learning into Misco Hill. And I believe we're going on our 3rd year with the project-based learning. And so this year, Mr. McMurray and I, it's his professional goal. And so together we're teaming up to do this project-based learning unit where we are focusing on our story, our voices. And the inspiration for this unit came, first of all, it's part of our project-based learning, but a few years ago, our district had a speaker, a keynote speaker, Matthew Dix, come, and he's a teacher, but also a storyteller. And he talked about how sharing our stories really connects all of us. And so Mr. McMurray, he's right in the middle. He was inspired by Matthew Dix's presentation and bought his book, Storyworthy, where he shares with you how to tell a good story. He would be doing a much better job right now than I would. But so Mr. McMurray, he's always been interested in writing, and he decided to attend one of the events that Matthew Dix talked about. It's called The Moth. So any of you know, have you heard about The Moth? There's a podcast, right? And then he's been Mr. McMurray actually presents and goes to The Moth. He puts his name in the hat. I've been able to go twice with him, but he didn't get picked when I'm there. But then the next time that I don't go, he does get picked. So I feel like I should stop going with him to The Moth. But it's just it's a great event where people off the street just come and they share stories. And so that really inspired us to do something like that with our students. So this is a brief overview of our roadmap. We worked on it a little bit. We're still tweaking it. It's an iterative process where it will ebb and flow depending on what happens with our students. But we launched our project on the 11th of December, and I'll go a little bit more into that, which is why my friends over here are here, with an author visit who shared how she uses small moments that give big emotions to tell her stories and to write books. So that was our launch. And after that, we spent a week just introducing our students to storytelling, using some of the devices that Matthew Dix used, a random object generator where it will show you 5 objects and you just start to think of stories that you might have in your life. And it was really fun, I would say, those few days, because all of a sudden a slipper might show up and someone remembers a story. And then someone's story then reminds you of another story. So it was a lot of exciting time for the students to just start sharing their lives and making connections with each other. Where we are right now in our project-based learning is we're writing our own personal narratives. So the students brainstormed big emotional times in their lives, and they narrowed it down to 1, and now have to start to think about sharing their story. And so through this project-based learning, we are going to teach them how to hook their readers, how to build up the character, really get us to the rising action, to the climax or the turning point, and then bring us back to a resolution. And so in the next few weeks, we're hoping by right before February vacation, we will actually have a moth event at NISCO, and we will ask for students to volunteer, and we will draw names out of a hat. So not every student will get to present, but they'll all present in our classrooms, but then from there, we will run it just like a moth. They actually have not heard this, so they're getting privy to this. And then we will let them have a night of storytelling. We'll invite you all, and we'll invite parents in. We're still working out some of the details. We're not sure if we'll do all 3 ELA classes together one night, if we'll all host different events. So some logistics still have to be figured out. But so that's our big picture. And now to zoom into the launch event, in front of you, you'll see some pictures, because we were able to get an author to come to our school, and all through social media. So we were doing book clubs in our classroom, and I took a picture of some of the books that the students were reading in book clubs. And I always try to tag some of the authors if I can. And this author, Lindsay Stoddard, actually private messaged me. And she said, I just happened to see that you are in a town really close to Millbury. I'll be in Millbury presenting on the 12th. Would you like me to come and do an author visit? And I was like, I would love that, but how much does that cost, right? So fortunately for us, our PTO was willing to pay for this event. And we worked out all the details and they supported this, and as well as Dr. Benoit, who wholeheartedly said yes. And we were able to get Lindsay Stoddard to come in. She was a former teacher. She's written 5 books. 2 of them were book club books. I think Rylan and Merrick, they were in the book clubs. And then Molly's already read a few of her books, because once the students met Lindsay at this author event, they all wanted to read her books, the whole 5th grade. She actually donated some of her books to our classroom. So in the picture, you'll see that she came and she focused the presentation on what we wanted her to, which was how small moments can give off big emotions, and how in each one of her chapter books, she put events that had happened in her own life with different characters, obviously. And then she also let the kids know that there's a secret in one of the books that her brother shared with her one night while she was sleeping. And she won't tell us what the secret is, but you have to read the book to find out. And so I know Merrick has the book at his house right now, and it's one of those books that they can't wait for someone to finish so they can find out the secret. So it was this launch really ignited the students in talking about storytelling. And it was one of those things that just, it all kind of came together, and we're still in the middle of it right now. But what I'd like to do now is let the students share with you some of the lasting impressions and the inspiration that Lindsay Stoddard had with them when she came to visit us. So Merrick, would you like to go first?
Yes. So when Lindsay Stoddard came over, she hooked me to read her book, Right as Rain, which you heard about with the secret side of it. So I immediately started reading it, and I'm still reading it now. And I am trying to find out the secret later in the book. And she inspired me to write about small moments in my life that came out with big emotions. And it was also just really cool to meet an author, because I have never met anyone like that before, and it was just amazing to meet one.
She was able to, she came in a little early, and then anyone that actually had read one of her books in book clubs, we did like a private meet and greet. And I know Merrick came in and she signed a book for Merrick. So
yeah,
it was great fun. Molly, you want to share?
Sure. I was inspired by her because I really enjoy writing, but I didn't really have any ideas before she came. And then when she did come, she mentioned small moments writing, and that gave me an idea to write about a girl named Becky Boltree, but she likes to be called Brave. And she got bit by a dog like I did, but she was sort of older when she did. And but I lost it. I have no idea where the papers went. So I started writing another book. I have it here actually. It's a friendly fiction, and I called it Willow's Way. It's about a white Frisian. A white horse, technically.
And then Rylan, do you want to share?
At first, when I heard that there would be an author coming, I thought, oh, it's just an author. But then once I read her book and I got to know how exciting and how good it was, I was really excited for the author to come and see and talk to our school. It was very different to see a real author that I wrote, that I read a book that she wrote of, and yeah, basically it's
pretty cool, right? Yeah. And I think for students who read her books, for students who didn't read her books, the students were asking to read them and inspired to write. And I know across the board, we have found the enthusiasm for writing to be just, it's been more engaging because it was an authentic person who shared with them her life and how she used her life to put into stories. And then luckily she has agreed to come back on World Read Aloud Day. She's going to Zoom with our 5th graders and do World Read Aloud Day, where she'll read the first chapter of one of her books. And she also agreed to be to give our students feedback. So when they get to the writing phase where we can revise and edit, she's willing to do some feedback with our students, give them feedback in their stories. We're going to connect with other authors locally and then via Zoom to see if they'll give our students real feedback as well. There's nothing better than an authentic audience. So thank you for allowing us to come in and present the exciting writing that's happening in our classrooms. If you have any questions, I'll let them field the questions. Otherwise,
I was just wondering if you learned any tricks about how to write, any tricks or any secrets that the author shared with you.
anyone?
Well, technically she didn't share one of her secrets, but like one of her tricks, but when I read her book, I do this a lot. I like to find more bigger vocabulary words to add into my story. So her books kind of helped me find some.
Cool.
I thought it might be like really easy to write a book just based on one thing and start a book or something to write about.
Did you have a question?
I just hope you wouldn't mind coming back to tell us the secret.
Oh. What do you think? Maybe. They were told like you can't give it away. You gotta read the book. There's a cliffhanger. That's one of the things they're learning is like they are loving authors who leave them on cliffhangers, right? So they all want to leave people on cliffhangers when they're writing. We're in the beginning stages, so.
Don't end your book before the cliffhanger is given.
That's right. All right, well, I'm sure one day we will see these names on a shelf. And thank you very much for allowing us to tell our story.
All right, thank you guys.
Nice job, you guys.
All right, over to Dr. Cohen for superintendent and administrative comments.
All right. Usually this time of year, I like to share a bunch of the upcoming events, just so all of you know what's coming up, and also the community who's watching will be aware of what's happening as well. You all should have received an email requesting if you'd be interested in joining at the career, led by the Career Community and Innovations Coordinator, Tara Bennett. They're going to be hosting their NIPMUC Science and Engineering Research Symposium. That will be on Thursday, January 24th in the morning from 8 to 10 at the high school. They're looking for any of you, if you're able to come on over and, give feedback to the students, but also anyone in the community. We're definitely always looking for community partners. And I would say that every year that they have this symposium, it grows and grows and grows. I don't know if anyone was able to attend last year, but I was able to attend. It was fantastic. It's almost not long enough for me, because not that they're going to have it longer, but for me personally, because I get so in depth in conversations with students to really hear about what they're working on. And what's really been fascinating for me throughout the years as I get to know some of the students is because it's often their passion projects. There's often unique connections to things that they're interested in some of the topic areas as well. And we've really a long time ago, you know, we had kind of the little trifold and a few things on the table. It's becoming more professional and closer to what you might see as students get older and with the poster presentations or the video presentations, etc. And they love talking about it and answering questions. Have you been part of it yet? Yeah,
Last year.
right? Yeah, last year? Yeah. Probably talked to you. So it's, I definitely recommend it. You guys want to say anything to add to it since you participated?
I remember last year, it was my passion project, and it was probably my favorite event of my science class, where I basically learned about a topic. I extended it to basically making a TikToks about it, and then when the symposium came up, I made my poster. Really fun.
I did astrochemistry, so we kind of researched like that career. I'm not taking any science classes this year, so I'm not doing it this year, but I'm hoping to do it next year. Because there were some presentations that were really good, and I was like looking at them and I was like, I wish that was mine. But really cool. And I wish I could do something like that like next year. So I'm hoping if I do it again, I'll be able to add some course.
I'm still stuck on astrochemistry.
You know, astrochemistry. Yeah, we're gonna talk after so you can explain that. I don't think I studied that in a minor. Well, thank you for that. And you know, this isn't really an isolation of an event. I mean, it's a lot of hard work by the teachers and the students and everything, but it's also really closely aligned to our strategic goals that we always talk about deeper learning. And you just saw that example as well with the fifth graders and project-based learning, and a lot of extended learning projects as well. And a piece of that is having it be this showcase to have authentic audiences and to really have those connections. And so every year we're looking to make it better, improve it, expand it with more students or in more areas across the district, especially at the secondary level. And it's really an awesome event, and you'll hear about other ones in the future. I wasn't able to attend, but the Mendon-Upton's night at the Railers was last Friday, and I understand the Misco Hill Middle School Band performed God Bless America, and the elementary course from Clough sang the American Anthem, and Memorial students were invited to the Railers High Five Tunnel. I don't know if any of you were there. No, but I hear it was a really fun event, and we're appreciative that we have this partnership with them. They're able to have that experience for our students. We have kindergarten information night. I know on Facebook, there are a couple questions that came out recently that were passed along that people are looking for information. So that is sent out in the newsletters and on the website as well, that they'll be hosted at Memorial in Clough, and that's on January 24th from 6 to 7. And then following that, I didn't put the date in my notes, but it's February 8th. Spanish immersion kindergarten night is scheduled for Thursday, February 8th. And typically, if anyone's interested in the Spanish immersion program for kindergarten, what they do is they learn all about the kindergarten and the process at that opening meeting. And then we do and they hear a little bit about it. And then we do like a follow-up and answer questions. And we do that one online. So we'll be in the next week or so putting information up about that, so people know what the link is to access that. This is very exciting news. I'm sure you've heard about it because it's all over if you're in the social media world there, but the Mendon-Upton Education Foundation is hosting the Wizards game and also working with DECA at the high school for that as well. And we hope you will join us, or anyone will join us at the game between the Harlem Wizards and the Mendon-Upton Dream Team. Jim and I have seen the t-shirts that will be worn. They're very snazzy, and I'm looking forward to participating. I was like the first one on the volunteer list, and then everyone followed after. So we usually have about 20 representatives from our staff, and we have it all across all 4 schools. We still have a couple openings. I was hoping to get Mrs. Webster to sign up, but a couple more openings, but it's a really fun time, and it's a great fundraiser. And I love our partnership with Ed Foundation. They really support a lot of grants. They'll come later on, probably in the spring, and or when we open up the grants, to be able to talk about the opportunities for our teachers to have grants there. And finally, we have the Knitbook Showcase coming up, which I always like to put on everyone's radar. And that was advertised in the MISCO newsletter recently as well. And so it's for typically our incoming like eighth grade students and middle school students to learn and their parents to learn about what it's like at Nipmuc and hopefully get to learn about all these great activities that we've been talking about tonight and the student life and all the academic opportunities and that we take advantage of here. And I highly recommend if you have know anyone who is, you know, considering Nipmuc or wanting to learn more, you don't want to miss that night. It's they do a really excellent job. We're appreciative of that. So those were my upcoming events. I'm sure I missed about 20 more, but those are some highlights. Do you have any questions related to those? No? Okay. So now I'm going to ask if we could have Cheryl and Colleen come on up. I'm going to go over there, or you could pull up a second chart if you wanted to do. Whatever you prefer. Yes, okay. And they're going to be giving an update on our expansion of Project Lead the Way and just to make sure everyone's aware of some of the practices we've been practicing this year.
So we're delighted to be here with you for our second now curriculum spotlight. This one focused on Project Lead the Way, which is you know, an exciting curriculum resource that really touches all levels of our district. And so we thought it would be a good thing to kind of share with you in you know, in terms of describing that and also its connection to deeper learning. So here's what we're going to do today. And I'll ask you to put it again. All right.
This is our Project Lead the Way structure. You see from the slide that it starts in the elementary with some modules that really are launching the Project Lead the Way. And some of the units that they are doing are pretty great. Watching one of our teachers that got trained this year, a student had to design I lost my words here. When someone breaks their arm, the splint that they had to put on, I couldn't think of the word.
Why we do it together?
When they put it on, the kids had to design it so if it failed, if it got wet or anything happened. So they had to do a lot of thinking, and that's really getting them in the beginning stages of Project Lead the Way to get into that deeper learning, thinking things through. They're creative, they're problem solving, and they're really digging in. On 6 through 8, we see a lot of connection with, of course, our technology classes and design and modeling and some of the other courses that we teach, but it also is integrated into our science class, some of our science classes. And we're hoping to continue to really expand that, but it opens and creates that future kind of beginning stages of heading into that career and where that's going to go. And then in high school, we've added computer science, also with the innovation pathways. So we're seeing some expansion there in the coding, and kids can actually leave high school with quite a lot of knowledge where they can pick up courses in college or even go right into the industry to start to work. So it really helps to build all the structures, and it puts it in place throughout as they go. So it does impact our entire district.
And so this is where I just wanted to kind of pause and like mark Project Lead the Way as a curriculum resource that really supports one of the first priority of our strategic plan, which is like to develop deeper learning. And it does it because it ends up creating these experiences for kids that are hands-on, no matter what level, whether it's the launch or the gateway, or the, I'm forgetting the last name that you just shared.
The computer science.
Well, yeah, the upper level, the secondary level.
Yeah.
And it does it in a way where they're creating something, so they're solving a problem, and then and also they're working together to be iterative and to reflect and to revise their designs, and they need to be creative in all of this. And the curriculum resource 2 ends up introducing careers so that it ends up being real world applications for as early as middle school. So those aspects of it, I think, are worth noting as we're talking about these resources. Oh, you want to click on the thing that actually isn't even a unit, but I just thought it connected so well.
No, right where it needs to be.
There we go. You have to try again. And that's what's happening as they're going through this kind of process of like design and iteration. So now you can flip to the next slide.
One of the projects that they do in the middle school is to design toys or tools for a student that has a disability. So they're really thinking about what the disability is, how can they support it, and coming up with different ideas to work that through. So there is quite a process, and it is reflected out in the world, which is really nice to see. And they get really excited about what they're creating, which is fun.
And so the program itself, will highlight it at all levels. The program itself is organized into units. The units are aligned to standards, and they're aligned to standards in STEM and can be embedded into our curriculum progressions where they make the most sense. In the launch modules, they tend to be shorter. They can be embedded into the regular curriculum, and they can also be embedded into extra activities and things because they're shorter and the kids can kind of do them more quickly. But where we're going with the elementary level is we're starting to train teachers at all grade levels. And we're even training teachers to be trainers, which is another cool part of Project Lead the Way, is they allow the trainer process so that we can build capacity internally without always having to turn to the external vendor. So we have the modules that align to STEM standards, and then the next slide shows that they also show alignment to our math and our ELA standards. So all of these things are kind of spelled out, and then what we can do is we can identify where in our curriculum progressions they best align.
And just so you know about elementary, Katie Dunton, one of our tech teachers at Memorial, was trained as a trainer, and she led some training in early December for some of the teachers at the different grade levels to really expand the program. Even one of our assistant principal, Lauren Chuck, also was trained, and Lauren's going to do one in second grade, but each one is taking on a module so that they can begin to really expand Project Lead the Way in the schools.
But all right, so this was one of, do you want to go? This was one of the showcases, and actually we're having one of the showcases at the middle school this coming Friday. They're doing an amusement park one, and Brent's in one of the pictures in the center. But the kids kind of exhibit the work that they do, and then audience members can go in and ask them questions. And this was an example from last year. So you're, yeah.
It's great because it gets the kids to think beyond just doing the project in class, because they have an authentic audience that they're going to present for, and it causes them to act a little different, create a more rich project because they know somebody else is looking at it besides just their teacher and their peers. So it's great. You know from our conversations in the past that innovation career pathways, we have computer science, but Project Lead the Way courses helped us to do that. So we really align nicely to support our expansion of the programs, especially computer science. And we have some of our teachers at the high school that are teaching different computer science classes. Sandy, that's pictured in the middle there, she just went through training for cybersecurity, so we can continue to grow our programming that we have offered at the high school level.
I jump into one thing that's really nice through the grants that we've had in the past is we get a lot of additional PD support through Project Lead the Way beyond that initial training. hopefully I'm not stealing
You're
something I'm
right.
gonna say on a slide. But it's, you enter this network. And a lot of it's local and connected with different locations like WPI, and so they have conferences, and so we're able to go and learn more from other colleagues in the state, and you're in that network once you have been trained, which is another additional advantage to some of the programming.
28 Foundation is who Project Lead the Way is through. We access them for ST Math, for Project Lead the Way, and also
Project-based learning.
Project-based learning. And I know that, I think it was John talked about, John Clements, one of his earlier presentations in the year about our involvement with Ally, which is the Applied Leadership Learning Institute that John Clements, Miriam Moran, Power Bennett, and myself are involved in. It's all through 1-8. They're very supportive about everything that we're doing. We reach out often. Susie Bell, who's our connection to Project Midway, is coming with both elementary schools to kind of reinvigorate our involvement with Project Midway. She's doing some different training for the teachers. Like, I think she's going to do a shortened module during the staff collaboration time. So it promotes that excitement, which you can't help but want to do it once you see it in action. Anything else? So it's a good foundation to be involved in besides Project Lead the Way. And do you have any questions for us?
So one thing I noticed when you showed, I think it was back on like the second or third slide, the different steps. It was K through 5, the 5th graders kind of being, in a separate regime from the rest of the middle school. Is that presented any sort of complications as far as, getting the 5th grade staff trained up this differently from the rest of the middle school staff or anything like that? Or is it just kind of smooth sailing since it's a district-wide initiative anyway?
It is a bit of a puzzle, right? Because what happens is they have all these units that are designed and then they link them to national standards. And what we need to do is we need to figure out where and how they fit. So I feel like we're in the process of doing that by getting people trained first to understand the concepts and get introduced to units. And then this will become a part of, like any curricular resource, like our curriculum review, where we kind of look and we say, here's our progressions, here are the resources we have, here's where they best fit. And so with respect to that, we're in the process of training more teachers. Right now at the middle school, there are 3 science teachers that have been trained, and then Britt and Beth, which a good portion of their curriculum draws on.
One thing that's different about the launch, the elementary, it's about 10 hours, I believe, of a unit. So it's the launch modules are much smaller than the gateway. The gateway is more of like a cross course. That's why it's actually in a way been a nice fit for some of the technology electives that we have in particular, but the launch is smaller. So it's actually really, it fits perfectly for elementary kind of coursework, but also in that 5th grade. So even though it happens to be at the 5th grade, happens to be in the middle school, we're still, it has potential. It's just a matter of aligning with the standards and kind of seeing what the units might be the best fit when we look at them.
When is the training for the staff?
We've had different trainings here at NISCO. There hasn't been something this year, but has in previous years. This year we did, we had Katie Gunton elected to train, and then she did a training for the teachers over at Memorial in early December. So we're continuing to hopefully grow the program and continue to operate.
Is that happening at professional development days, or is that happening other times? When is it happening?
It has happened both, actually.
I can add, so this goes back to even before COVID when we started Project Lead the Way. So when we started rolling it out at NISCO. And so we had a few teachers that were trained. So like Casey Rhodes and Mark Holloway have been trained because we had some units that fit in. And also at the time, Brett Kaler and Jen Parent, when also did it in that 7th grade and tried out and piloted some of the modules. And then we did some focus and training Beth Gervais, and then Brett came over into the tech and we did it there and kind of tried some units. So it's a little trickier at the middle school because they're longer and you have to really find a place in science where it's going to align. And so then once we had through that grant, some at a few of the, we met their criteria. Another aspect, we brought it up with the computer science at the high school and we're able to bring it down and start to train some of the teachers at the elementary as well. Beth Gervais was original launch person who was the trainer, but we realized at the elementary schools that we needed to have more trainers as well. And so that's the process that we're working on to be able to expand some of the elementary. But if you have further questions, Bob, feel free to ask us after too. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, on to new business.
Oh, we need it. Right. So we have a couple budget presentations. So we're going to start off with our facilities budget requests, and then after that, we'll have the middle school budget presentation. To follow.
Ken's coming up with his grown-up chance. Hi, everybody. How are you doing tonight? Everybody's survived the snow.
I want to thank Ken and his team for ensuring that we were able to have school on time today because of all of the hard work yesterday. So thank you for that.
Okay, facilities. So I'm going to talk about the facility budget for FY25. We'll start out with, I saw this a few days ago and I thought to myself, this kind of speaks to our capital plan more than anything else, that we built everything 20 years ago. The second time to do it is going to be now. We didn't necessarily build, but we're going to have to do some upgrading and replacing of things. So it's just something to ponder, I guess. As far as the process for budget process, initially we kind of look at all the historical trends that we go through. Ken and I meet like 3-4 times a week at least. Go through everything that's going wrong, everything that's going right, where we're spending money, where we need to spend money. So he and I kind of put together the budget, and then we sit down with Maureen and Cheryl, review all of this. So that's the process we go through. We pretty much look at what's been going wrong, so we can handle it. So return on investments is kind of a catchy term, I think, for facilities. We've done a lot of things, that don't necessarily save us money in the long run, but some of them do. One of the things we did accomplish is we finally can use the water again at Clough and Nisco, because we've got grant supported treatment systems in place that are very complex. I think a couple of you have had an opportunity to see some of that. We did replace the boilers here, which have become much more efficient, so they are saving us some money in the long run on natural gas. Did the gym floors at both schools. I think they came out really well, but in reality, over the last 8 to 10 years, we've put about $2.3 million worth of funds into the facilities in a variety of places. Some of it not always all that noticeable. Sometimes people say, well, you're spending money, but I don't see it anywhere. Well, it might be behind the scenes in the infrastructure for things, data stuff, boilers, HVAC systems. There's a lot of stuff that goes on that makes the buildings so that they can be open. So it's just one thing to kind of look at. Speaking to some of the grants and things that we've done, we've got this is a partial list. This is not a complete list of things we've done over the last few years. About 400,000 of this is through grants for cameras, for the treatment systems, for roof inspections, carpets, the rubber playgrounds at the schools. We've also kind of benefited from a few things that have broken down that became insurance claims. For example, the clock tower that really needed to have some upgrade done to it. I don't know if a bird flew into it or something flew into it and broke it. So we were able to get it fixed. We had a couple of issues at Clough that we had to replace pumps, but they were pumps that were 20 years old that we knew we were going to have to replace anyway. So we did benefit a little bit from insurance. Same thing with the boiler at Clough. I forget exactly, the whole section stopped working. And
one section was cracked and they didn't sell the replacement parts, so we had to put a whole new boiler and we reused the burner.
So anyway, so we've benefited from a lot of that as well. So these are some of the things that we've done over the last 8 years or so. As far as efficiencies, one of the things that I'm always very proud of is electricity that we've done at the district. Between solar and the LEDs and all the other things, we are probably paying 70% less than most public facilities for our electricity usage. And we have a fairly large mass of credits on our bills now that's going to hopefully pay for a retrofit to replace a lot of these fixtures that are now about 8 years old and are starting to fail. So we've done really well with that in the net metering. We purchase our heating oil through a collaborative. So I think right now we're paying about $2.85 a gallon, where I think the going rate out there is a little bit higher than that. We place all of our custodial supplies through contracted pricing. And the one thing I can tell you, and that's what I have at the bottom here, is I've met with salespeople consistently. Sometimes they're, people that are good friends of people that I know that I would love to give business to, but they can't match the prices that we're getting now. They always come back to me and say, hey, I want to do business with you, but I can't sell to you for that. So I think that speaks a lot to the Ken's work in trying to find good pricing and the fact that we, do the best we can to control stuff. As far as the FY25 budget, we're increasing the supply budgets slightly, mostly just because cost of things are going up. Same thing with boiler maintenance. Water and sewer, that mostly speaks to the cost of water in Upton and the 2 schools that are on public water supplies where that cost has gone up. We've also added some additional funds. So these are all increases from current budgeting. For HVAC controls, we continue to have issues at Clough. We continue to have issues here at Nipmuc. Memorial's been a little bit more stable, but we need to have some money available for that. And general building maintenance, things are breaking that we need to fix, and everything costs a lot of money these days. That's what we're finding. Some of our outdoor equipment, indoor equipment, we need to upgrade. When I speak to that, it's the floor zambonis, the vacuums, some of the outdoor stuff, leaf blowers, all that stuff as it gets old needs to get replaced. Offsetting that a little bit, we're reducing our heating fuel counts. A lot of that is the savings at Nipmuc. The new boilers are very efficient. So we found that last year we had a fair amount of money left over. So I feel comfortable reducing those budgets a little bit. And maybe this is premature because I would love to talk about snow and ice, but we are reducing the snow removal budget based on the last 2 or 3 years. We may rethink that depending on how the next month goes.
No.
But, as long as they only happen on weekends, we won't have to worry about it. So those are a couple of savings on the other side as far as the budget goes. But one area that we're putting an investment into, and this is an increase of $133,000 in outdoor fields maintenance. We know that we don't spend enough money on our fields. Our fields need some work. And the only way to do that is to invest money. Now, one of the things we're going to do is we're going to contract out for fertilization and weed control, some of the things that we just don't have the equipment and the manpower to do. So we've gotten one quote, we're going to get a couple of more to do some of this stuff out here, but that's an increase at MISCO and at Nipmuc mostly to try and cover some of the field stuff. And we begin, the fields need work and we know we don't spend enough money. So this is one place. If we want to upgrade our fields, we're going to have to invest money into it. As far as strengths for the department, Ken probably doesn't want me to tell you this, but he is the strongest strength we have because he knows more about these buildings than anybody I've ever met. And I think I've said this before, but he comes in and tells me, well, I think it's this. And I'm thinking to myself, why don't we let the guy that's going to repair it tell us what needs to be done? He's always right. So that's a good thing. So Ken is a real strength to have. So is the rest of our custodial staff. We've got good people that work very hard and do the best they can to get these buildings and keep these buildings maintained well. We also have a good list of contractors that come when we call them. And that's a big deal. I mean, if any of you have tried to get your anything fixed at your house and it takes you 2 months, if we have something that breaks down, like say the heat stops working, we need somebody there today, not in 3 weeks. So we've got a good list of people that come, and we do a lot of preventative maintenance in order to avoid some of the catastrophes that we seem to encounter. As far as areas for growth, we do have some new staff and they need training. And training takes time, and mostly Ken that has to train them because he's the one that knows everything. And there's only one of him. And as you know, we've got some capital projects, but one of the other things that is not in the budget yet, but we need to consider is Ken needs somebody to help him when he's not always available. We got 4 buildings. There's a lot of things going on in each building. And right now he's the only one that really knows how all that stuff works. So I think we have to start to look in that direction, whether we have an assistant of some kind that has a little better knowledge base on all of the buildings and not just the building that we're Some things we're encountering this year. So these are costs that we're gonna probably have to deal with in this fiscal year. The elevator doors, I believe it is at Nipmuc here, apparently the tracks have worn out. Am I saying this correctly?
Yes, you are.
And apparently it's gonna cost $34,000 to fix them, so they must be gold plated tracks. We've got some valves for the water system here that after the meter, again, they're old and need to be replaced. That's about 48,000, and as you know, we're working on the well here, and that's gonna be about 40,000 that we're gonna deal with this year. The stage floor at Misco, you all know that that is just a wonderful historic, antique floor that we really don't want to touch, but I think we're going to. We're having that done over February break, and we still have money in some of our grants to do some additional classrooms with carpets or flooring. We're probably gonna do that either. I don't know if we can do it over any of the breaks or if it's gonna have to be done at the end of the school year, but that's something else we're gonna address. We did, I think, 10 rooms last summer. I think we can probably do another 8 or so in this next round. And cloth, the potable water tank, I always call it the yellow submarine. It's outside by the well. The inside of that has to be recoated with, what are they coated with?
Epoxy paint to seal the inside because it's starting to corrode from the inside out. It's metal. We could upgrade to a fiberglass one, but it'd be over $100,000. So this way here, it'll last another 25 years, we hope, by sanding it, recoating it, and keeping the potable water tank alive and working well.
So that's something we're gonna do probably at the end of the school year, because we'll have to shut the water off in school for 3 or 4 days. There's a control panel for the treatment system that is also 20 years old, that is no longer really functioning properly. I think we're doing a lot of things manually right now. That has to be addressed, and we've got some pumps down in the pit that need to be addressed. The one school that things are relatively stable at this point in time. Everybody at this point, that building seems to be functioning really well. Now, I may speak too soon. As far as long-term projects, for FY25, we're looking at contracting out for the fields, general building maintenance that we're increasing some funding for, and everything is costing more. I think everybody's finding that everywhere. So there's a reason for budgets in the facilities where we have level funded this budget for probably the last 6 years. We're gonna have to start to add some money into it. Short term, we need hot water tanks at 3 schools. We replaced one at Nipmuc maybe 2 years ago. The other ones are 15 or 20 years old. I think we did them through grants when we did them, but they're gonna need to be replaced. I'm not sure when, but we know that it is an upcoming issue. Once we get the well working at Nipmuc, we then have to have an irrigation system that works. Right now, we think it's about 60% of it is working, the rest is not. One of the things that factors into that is part of the discussion is reorienting the softball field, and I wouldn't want to put an irrigation system down and then have to pick it up and rearrange it because we're turning the field. So we have to consider that, but I'm not sure where the financing would come for that or how much that would cost. So we're still working on that. And then again, I'll mention, we do need an assistant director of buildings and grounds or somebody to help you have a better knowledge base of what's going on. Long-term capital projects, I think we've talked about that ad nauseum, but that's really what's on the radar for long-term is what we're going to do to upgrade the facilities. That's something we've been working on. Everybody's aware. And that's about it for facilities for the budget.
Can I ask about the valves after water meters? Are those check valves or is that
Those are Watts 909 double check valves. They last about 15 years. And after you rebuild them multiple times, you can't rebuild them anymore. You can take them out and send them out to get rebuilt. It'll take about 90 days. And it costs almost the same amount to have them rebuilt that pop in new ones right away. The water comes into this building at about 120 PSI, which is extremely high.
Yeah.
So we have to throttle it down to 80 PSI. And so anything after the water meter.
Where's the water coming from? What pump is
Probably the tank up on the top of, you used to live up there, Ron. The top of the hill. It's because the elevation of the tank is so high.
Wow.
And at 8 3/4 pounds per gallon, all the water pressure is coming down. 120 PSI is a lot. And if you don't throttle it down, you start blowing out things in the building, and of course, a lot of sedimentation comes along with that also. So we're working with the water department right now to see if we can have them get us a new water meter, because those are supposed to be changed out every so many years also.
It's an incredible amount of money for a water.
Well, everything's in parallel, so we have to have 2 of each.
what I have learned over the years is that everything just seems to cost way more than you think it should. That's kind of been my feeling. Same thing at home, but here, that's what I find is that everything is just.
$50,000. We could have 2 stage floors.
Yes, but if you didn't have the PSI to wash them with.
Take a power wash.
Yeah. Any other questions?
Jay, this might not be exactly related, but I'll ask it anyway.
Go ahead.
With all the field work that we need to do with this and that, does it ever make sense to say, hey, this summer, we're just gonna give all the fields a timeout? I know we donate or rent our fields to a whole bunch of clubs, associations, groups and stuff like that, but do we ever just say, I mean, it's like your own lawn or whatever, you walk on it every day, you're never gonna get it to grow, you're never gonna get it repaired. Do we just start to send out the word now that we're going timeout this summer?
We've talked about it. I don't know that the fields get used that much in the summer. I mean, there's a couple of summer camps, but mostly they're in the town parks, but you really need to take it offline, I think, longer than 60 days. If you really want to have, maybe they could throw some stuff down, but.
It's a start though, right?
Right, I mean, in a perfect world, you take the field offline for a year, you're going, you're reseeding, you're building, you keep it offline. We just don't have the ability to do that. Right. Which is where discussion about a, synthetic field comes into play, because you don't have to do that kind of stuff. I mean, there's other things, but, yeah, I mean, it's something to consider. I can't say that we absolutely not, but,
Yeah.
it's something to consider.
Yeah. And it's just a tough time of year to.
Yeah.
You get a hot, dry summer, it's just, you can't recover from that, right?
Another reason to have like the irrigation, on the practice fields and the baseball and softball field, that really just doesn't work. This summer it was great. We had plenty of rain.
Yeah,
The
absolutely.
fields were wonderful.
It was the summer before, I think that.
Right. It looked like,
Nobody could keep.
1883 out there.
Right. Excellent, great, thank you guys.
Right.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Middle school budget requests? Yeah, whatever you prefer. Hi, everyone. Before we get started, I also want to take the opportunity to introduce Mr. Paul Majorano, who is filling in for Nick during his paternity leave. And so he's been at Nisco for a little over a week now, right? And has hit the ground running, and it's been a tremendous support to us. I thank you for that. So as we come back from break, so I appreciate it. So just starting with a timely quote, kind of ground us in what we're thinking about. So this idea of supporting our students to think intensely, to think creatively, to think critically. And I think you've seen some of that in the presentations that have been happening from the middle school, and some of the work that we've been trying to do to engage kids in deeper learning. We go through the same budget prioritization process that is done by the other schools and by other departments within the district. So really starting, for us, it starts in the departmental collaboration, starts at the teacher level. So teachers are working with their department leaders to kind of submit what they feel like they need in terms of supplies. That then comes to me. I work with department leaders, and then work with Maureen and Cheryl with Jay. And as we start to bring the budget forward and consider what we need for the coming year. Just thinking about some of the return on investments that we've had in years past. So the first being wellness, the addition of the wellness teacher at the school over the last couple of years. It's really increased the amount of health students have access to, health and PE that students have access to. So for us, it's really kind of thinking about it's really allowed us to build a curriculum for 5th and 6th graders around health. It's allowed us to think about the adoption of the new health and PE frameworks for the state, and really have the resources, the human resources that we need to be able to support students in that work. And so just kind of thinking about that, part of that vision is really a comprehensive, well-rounded health education for students that is developmentally and age appropriate, and provides opportunities for both physical education and health education. So it's been very important.
thank you, John, for that. Project Lead the Way, you've heard a lot about that tonight, and certainly that the fruits of that work are there at NISCO, and thinking about the courses that our students get to partake in, things like digital media, digital tools, automation and robotics, computer science, design and modeling, and social media. So we really appreciate that. PBL is another place where we've been investing time, energy, resources, and so that project-based learning experience, again, that we've had a couple of different presentations from NISCO. At this point, we have at least 75% of our teachers that have been trained through PBL 101, and our goal is for every student to experience at least 2 units, PBL structured units this year. Just kind of thinking ahead, certainly our investments in our curriculum and some of the PD that we've been focused on is really thinking about helping us support teaching the child and being able to teach all of our students. So thinking about increasing our PD around trauma-informed practices, safety care training, which is really about those de-escalation strategies for folks. PBL, universal design for learning, which helps us think about kind of on the front end of what all kids need to be successful versus the like a reactionary, like they didn't meet this standard, so what do we do now? And that in our commitment to co-teaching across the middle school. And then certainly some of our facilities upgrades that have been talked about elsewhere in this evening. So past reductions, reallocations and efficiencies. So our 7th grade teacher, a 7th grade teacher was reallocated to 6th grade to meet the higher class size demands in that for this year. We have a smaller 7th grade class this year. 6th grade is much larger. And part of that was May's reduction to support the request for the township, making reductions in the budget. The reduction of a paraprofessional position through attrition that we didn't need to fill in that moment. And really the efficiencies, one of the things that the office staff at NISCO undertook this summer was really kind of an inventory and reorganization of our general supplies and ensuring that we have what we need, that we're not ordering things that we already have like a bunch of. And so really bringing that review and management process underway. It's still ongoing. So that will help us, particularly as we move forward and thinking about the supplies that we need to be ordering through the office.
Is the paraprofessional the library?
The paraprofessional is the library person that did not return.
I can add something too, just through Jen D'Angelo's work just in the district, and working at all of the paraprofessional needs in general to beyond some, we have some support staff like in the media center here. She goes through that every year and kind of reallocates within the district and sees if we need it. So you don't have people coming on board, assigned to a student or whatever, and going throughout and kind of adding throughout the year. So she's done a good job on that other end of it as well.
We have a number of grants in the district that we benefit from. Not all are strictly dedicated to NISCO, but we certainly benefit from grants that support the entire district. Some of ours in particular that are the ST Math grant for grades 5 and 6. Obviously, as we've talked about, the PBL leadership network, where we definitely benefit from reduced PB costs, and our teachers are taking advantage of that. The civics grant, which allowed us to purchase high quality materials for civics, and then the Student Opportunities Act evidence-based practices grant, which I think Cheryl will talk about more at another point. Certainly the biggest grant on there, but we definitely benefit from that in terms of our efforts around co-teaching and around inclusive practices. So many of the things that we talked about, like those return on investment in terms of PD, some of that is also coming from that particular grant. Our strengths and areas of growth are numerous on here, but they're really aligned, kind of thinking about them in terms of aligned with our strategic plan. And really many of them, our strengths are these places where, you know, we're on the road, we're starting to use, we're using data, for instance, we have commitments to co-teaching, we're building our skills in those areas. Our areas of growth in oftentimes are about continuing to grow those practices, to take them to that next level, to begin to that ongoing refinement of what we're doing. So thinking about where we are and where we need to go really tied into our strategic plan, both at the building level and at the district level. Our departmental requests. And so I apologize if anybody looked at this particular slide before the presentation tonight. It has been updated. It should be accurate now. I've caught a couple of mistakes on there that had thrown our calculations off. But what you see is really there are some places where there are some increase in what we're asking for, but all of those are really tied deeply into the resources that we want to provide our students, places where we need to want to invest in updating resources within our curriculum. And particularly if you look at the large number for ELA, for instance, that's really tied to the desire to diversify our texts that we're presenting students with, that to ensure that students can see themselves within our curriculum and in the books that they read, and the cost of that at each grade level, as that one-time investment. As we work to do some of that work. Another place would be in terms of thinking about like PE and wellness are much higher this year, and that has to do with renewal of equipment in particular. So thinking about like the overhaul of some of our equipment, and again in music, goods, that ongoing asks and requests that are really about updating equipment that we have. So it's really about investing in the resources that we have for our students as we look ahead to the future.
Before we move on, so is that the equipment updates, is that going to be like an ongoing thing year to year, or that we're sort of starting to roll it out and roll it out slowly, or is this going to be like a one-time increase and then next year you took the drop back down closer to where
I think that particular increase, like, so if you look at PE and wellness, has to do with a particular set of equipment that's been asked for. And I think one was a different set was asked for last year, but wasn't funded through the budget. So it's kind of, there are always some ongoing costs of upgrades of things, but this is like for an entire unit of study that they're looking for. Music, I think it's one particular instrument, so that's a high ticket item, so. I wouldn't see it as it's a tuba. It's a tuba. So we wouldn't be adding a tuba each year, but to your question, like, would it be a high ticket item each year that we would see? I don't anticipate that. But and the same with that update to the ELA.
That's for textbooks, or is it for like a digital?
When we built that, we were looking at novels the students are reading and updating some of the choices of reading that we have within our system. So, we have some investment requests in staffing for MISCO. So the first is a 5th grade teacher. And so like currently our 5th grade had 7 teachers. And so that makes for slightly higher class sizes within our 5th grade. Adding another 5th grade teacher would do a couple of different things for us. It would bring the class size down in 5th grade, which I feel is pretty important, particularly as students transition from that more elementary model to a more middle school model. The other thing that will allow us to do is to create even 2-person teams. So if you think about, even if they were housed within a traditional elementary school, 5th grades are sometimes in those 2-person teams of, like, say, humanities and STEM, so math, science, social studies, English, that allows for that kind of a tradition that transition where they might in the next year in 6th grade move to like a 4-person team where they're moving teachers. So our 7-person model right now has students having more teachers that they're learning as they're transitioning to a larger building for them in all cases. So I would advocate for that. An additional special education teacher to be shared across the 5th and 6th grade. So kind of thinking about those needs that would allow for more co-teaching partnerships. It allows for greater collaboration between special education and general education teachers. And that really does benefit all students. when that collaboration is happening. When I think about the ratio of numbers for next year, so we currently have 4 special education teachers dedicated across the 7th and 8th grade. So for using next year's numbers, that would be an average of 14.5 students per special educator. If you think about caseload, doesn't always evenly distribute that way. But adding an additional special educator at the 5th and 6th grade level would bring their ratio to 15, so they're more in parity. And for what they and then the last would be a 7th, one more teacher asked, and that would be a 7th grade science teacher. And that, you know, we do have a larger class that's rising to the 7th grade next year. So to maintain the seven teachers across the 4 content areas instead of 8 across the 4 content areas for 2 full teams. What that does really, if we don't add a 7th grade science teacher, what that would mean is a class size of 25 plus for our 7th graders in their 4 content classes. And it would require 3 teachers, as is the case this year, to teach 1 class out of their content area expertise.
Are these in priority order?
They're not necessarily in priority order, but you know, right now they all feel like a large priority.
It's 1A, 1B, 1C.
Yeah, so yeah, to me, as I think about, you know, if I put the lens on what is, you know, if I put students at the center and think about, you know, the instruction that we're able to give them, these are all to benefit. So long-term projections and planning. So there are a couple of areas where I don't have long-term projections, as I'm still, you know, starting to getting into more disco, but you know, those priorities of staffing really are the 3 that we've asked for this year. Some of those other asks would be more therapeutic programming, more therapeutic supports. There will most likely need to be the consideration of additional world language teachers, particularly if we're trying to increase the amount of world language instruction that students have. Right now, our world language is on an every other day schedule. It's scheduled in the elective schedule. So having the number of teachers we have works well for that model. And for any different model, we may need to think differently about that. So I'm just putting it on the radar particularly as we're looking at our schedule, which is one of the things we talked about in our goals for the year. And then the facilities pieces are places where, you know, Jay and Ken have already spoken. I'm sure that it's been spoken about in capital planning, Dr. Coleman. And then PD and just the other resources we have. Again, it's kind of focused on, you know, how do we continue to grow our practice where, you know, we are a constantly growing profession like that, you know, we're constantly learning. And so those are places where I see our efforts being focused on how do we support teachers, how do we support students, and how do we support teachers to support students through their professional career.
I just wanted to say, when I was in 5th grade, we did have like the 4 2-person team of teachers thing, and I think it worked pretty good because I was in the Spanish immersion program, so I was kind of like sheltered for a big part of my life, but like in 5th grade, they kind of didn't really mix us up a lot, but it was, I had science and social studies and Spanish on one side, and the classroom right next to us was like English and social studies, and we would like switch it for it. So I thought that was.
Any questions?
Just on the short term, what the after school transportation, you know, what is.
Just thinking the opportunity for after school transportation at NISCO. So currently there is no after school transportation. So if a student were to stay after or work with a teacher, you know, any kind of extra help, any kind of after school activity, that's really dependent on them being picked up. Because the bus leaves at the end of the day and there's no opportunity for a circle back, another, you know, even abbreviated route that might give kids access. It doesn't require parent pickup. It's just something to be thinking about from an equity standpoint for students.
That even if it hasn't shown up necessarily in budget presentations before, it certainly has been conversations that we've had, and So I usually go into Jay's office and say, remind me how much it is if we want to have that late bus, and then we go through and we're like, oh, right, that's why we can't do it right now. It has come up before with Gen and even, for many, many years, it's something that we know would benefit students, especially with recreation. So just note that.
I would pay for part of that.
Yeah. Well, if some of you pay.
Yeah, right, seriously.
Couldn't use the vans for.
You can't, that's a good question. You can't do it to and from school. You can do it like during school, right?
Yes.
Yeah, it can't be like.
Can't use it for
transportation.
to and from school.
So,
That's a good question.
go ahead.
I said way back when there was always a late bus, right? It only
It
bumped
was,
in 2
yeah.
spots,
Yeah.
Correct.
but at least it got you close
Closer,
or,
yeah.
yeah.
So some of these things in the fiscal year 25 for long-term projections, like data into action, those are some of the initiatives we've already started.
Those are, but they will be, like, it's on for ongoing professional learning, continuing to grow our practice, so.
It's just
Any
on, it's
resources
like an
that we-
operational
Yeah.
cost. So it would be, this is a great presentation. I don't want to take it away from it. It would be helpful if we had, I think as Matt suggested, the things that are one-time costs versus the things that are operational costs, just so we understand what the impact is. That would be helpful.
When we come forward at budget subcommittee too, can get, more into
Okay.
some of the weeds on some of that too.
Yeah.
And lay it out.
That sounds good.
We definitely have a formulaic budget presentation, so
No, it's good.
every
It's
year,
good.
we need to tweak it a little bit, just make sure you're getting paid.
No, but we haven't, part of the problem is we haven't had a budget subcommittee meeting
Yeah.
for quite a while, so
Yeah.
it's coming up.
Coming up.
And that's my report. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Well, I guess we can move on to school committee subcommittees, since that's where Sean wants to.
Yeah.
Jim, any update, capital planning? You guys got the other last week?
Yes, so we had a capital planning subcommittee meeting last Tuesday, January 2nd. Maureen shared the survey results at it. Some good results, some good feedback from the communities we did put there. We discussed the pressing areas, the fields, the roofs, the flooring and building management systems. We had representation from both towns there, so I think at this point, it's time to start engaging with the towns and having conversations with them. And I think we will somewhat soon, have a draft to share, and I'm excited to have a good way to present this to the community.
Can I add just a couple points too? So we have been posting on the capital planning website. So we had an initial draft, for proposal for our needs list, and we also had the beginning of prioritization. It definitely like a very rough draft, and where we kind of pared down a larger number and keep paring down and then reorganizing. So it's certainly not the final draft. We got feedback, and then at the next meeting on the 24th, we're gonna again look at that. But if you embedded in the presentation, I think I have like the survey, highlights that we had from that, and also at the next school committee meeting, we asked MUCP to come and present on the fields. They presented with us, but they're been so deeply invested in some of that planning work that we thought if everyone could hear it here as well. So they're scheduled at our next meeting for that.
Sean?
Same thing as last time. Next meeting is January 17th. I'm kind of chomping at the bit to get to some of these things now that we've seen them all presented. So
Vicky, did you guys have a policy committee meeting tonight?
We did, so we're continuing our review of the fee policies. I'm gonna start with the fees. So we have 2 policies, that we're bringing forward tonight that we would recommend, waiving the first reading and approving tonight, as they're just, some minor verbiage changes, and just, to update to what MASC has as its recommended policy. So BEDD rules of order, so you can click there and see, and BEDF voting method, which is the minor changes are just to comply with open meeting law. So that's why changes you see are there. So the last one, the EDG minutes, is just for a first reading tonight, because there were some more substantive changes. They weren't actually all that substantive, but there were lots of them. So just to give you a little bit more time to look at them. So most of it's basically the same. It's just kind of like rearranged and reworded, but since it looks different. So that one we would just kind of do a first reading and look at it again next time.
May I make a motion to approve BEDD and BEDF changes?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Great. All right, and we'll come back to BD or BEDG next time. Can do that second reading. Thank you, Vicky. All right, and any negotiation update, Vicky?
No, we have meetings scheduled for this Wednesday, January 10th, and 2 weeks later on the 24th.
Okay. All right, see, other matters not anticipated by the committee within 48 hours of the posted meeting. I don't have any, I don't think any has popped up.
I just put in there just the correspondence that you received.
Ah, okay, yes,
Sorry.
yeah, no worries, thank you. We did receive an email end of last week from the administrative assistants asking to start the collective bargaining. Request that the school committee and the association administrative assistants commence negotiations for a successor contract. So we replied back that we will find some dates and get that rolling. All right, future agenda items. We've got the rest of the budget presentations. We'll go through the 2024 school calendar and keep talking about the district goals. So if there's nothing else, we'll take a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Actually, the motion is
To adjourn.
oh, wow, that changed quickly.
Life went pretty quick.
You gotta check, Sean.
Ah. I mean, that was like me looking down and looking up again. Second.
All right, sounds good. Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
And we are.